My name is Matt Mayoko from NBC Sports Bay Area. Check out all my work over there at NBCSportsBayArea.com, as well as the 49ers Talk podcast with myself and Jennifer Lee Chan. One of the things that I do weekly at NBCSportsBayArea.com is an overreactions piece where, I kind of tap into the things that people want to say. Is it a hot take, or is it just the frustration they're feeling at the time? Or maybe is it the over exuberance? And so we do a thing that basically, like I said, taps into that. And one thing that I've noticed, and I notice it here too, is kind of the level of vitriol that's directed at Coach Kyle Shanahan. And, I guess a lot of that came after the two losses to the Rams and the Cardinals, in which the 49ers blew big second half leads. Also, I think it probably dates back to the Kansas City Chiefs Super Bowls. So I'm going to get into that a little bit and just kind of see if that's real, or if it's just people who are trying to have a hot take. But first, just want to remind you that this is brought to you by Canyon Club Brewery, a restaurant and beer garden providing fresh beer, delicious bites, and a family-friendly atmosphere in Moraga, California. And that's right down the street from where I live. And it's definitely one of my go-to spots, a great place to hang out with friendly people and everything else. And they'll be coming soon to the Livery in Danville. So that's conveniently located for me, because after a day of covering the 49ers in Santa Clara, I can just dip off of 680 and go check out the new Canyon Club Brewery location, which will be opening sometime here in the near future. Okay, so let's talk about Kyle Shanahan. And it's sometimes it's kind of tough on social media to kind of figure out fact from fiction, or just perception, and how much it really is out there. I've been under the impression for quite some time that anybody who is going after Brock Purdy now on a national basis, they're doing it to generate revenue. That it's really not an honest opinion, because I don't think that you can watch Brock Purdy play for an extended period of time, or since he's taken over at quarterback, and form any kind of negative opinions of Brock Purdy as a player. So I think that is basically people being dishonest. Now, is the same true with Kyle Shanahan? A lot of hot takes out there. People, he should be on the hot seat. They need to fire him. They can't be good with Kyle Shanahan as a head coach. And I kind of have to take a step back and wonder where that's coming from. I understand the frustration, and a lot of it has to do with the opponent the 49ers are facing on Sunday, the Kansas City Chiefs. Because if it weren't for those two games against the Kansas City Chiefs, you could certainly make the argument that he is the best head coach in the league, that he's on a Hall of Fame track, in fact, probably a surefire Hall of Famer. But against Patrick Mahomes, against Chris Jones, against Andy Reid and company, the 49ers have lost two critical games, two Super Bowl games. And so instead of hoisting the franchise's sixth and seventh Lombardi trophies, they're relegated to second best. And so what I think is that I think you ask anybody around the league, any objective observer, and they would tell you that he is at the very top, not at the very top, because I think that would be Andy Reid, but I think he ranks right up there as far as the best coaches in the NFL. And where you put him, I don't know. Is it top five? Is it top 10? Heck, is it top two? I don't know. I do know that, I'm coming at you from a level of a guy who's been on the scene, since he's been with the 49ers as a head coach. We've had our back and forth. We've had our issues, but I think generally, I respect him as a coach, and so we have a reporter coach relationship. As far as whenever things go right, I point them out. Whenever things go wrong, I also point them out. But I think if the closer you are to the 49ers, probably the more you see. And when you speak to players on both sides of the ball, the thing that really shines through is just his level of coaching and his level of preparedness and detail and being able to coach the minute aspects of the game and make players better. And that last year, I think that went over to the defensive side at all. I would say that probably the biggest problem that the 49ers have had is that they've been too consistent. I think in the eyes of the public, it's better to fall. Um, I think it's better to fall short of the playoffs and not even make the playoffs than to make the playoffs and not go all the way. I think that a lot of coaches are cut a lot of slack because their teams aren't always in the postseason or they're not advancing far in the postseason. And so when you have a team like what the 49ers have had with so many near misses, the perception is that it's worse to get deep into the playoffs and not win it than to get than to just not make it. Does that make any sense? I'm trying to make sense here, folks. I think that if you get into the playoffs one time out of 5 years and you win a Super Bowl, you're hailed as a hero. But if you make it 5 years or 4 years, in the case of the 49ers, 4 out of 5 years, they made it to the NFC Championship game. They lost in the NFC Championship game twice. They lose in the Super Bowl twice. That's worse, I think, in the eyes of the public than getting to the playoffs just once during that time, as long as you win it. So I just kind of look at Andy Reid. And again, if it weren't for Andy Reid and the Kansas City Chiefs, the perception around Kyle Shanahan and the 49ers would be a lot different. But Andy Reid was in his 21st year as a head coach in the NFL before he won his first Super Bowl. And so, up to that point, he'd only been in the Super Bowl one time and he lost it. So that's why, I'm kind of jumping off here as far as this look at Kyle Shanahan and his perception, because the Kansas City Chiefs are coming to town. And by the way, this is a huge test for the 49ers because Andy Reid, who I think universally now is considered the best head coach in the NFL, his teams are 21-4 when coming out of the bye week, which is a crazy, crazy stat when you think about that. And so guess what? The Kansas City Chiefs are coming off of their bye week. Now, Shanahan's accomplishments, started off that first year 0-9, huge rebuilding project, horrible roster, everything else. And since then, he's turned it around. 8-4 in the postseason. That's a 667 win percentage, same number of postseason wins as his dad, and 25th all time. And his overall winning percentage, or his overall record as a head coach, 67-54. Now, the drawbacks. Whenever you get that close and you have an opportunity, you got to win it. And I totally understand that. And think about the Super Bowl LIV in Miami, up 20-10 in the fourth quarter. And I know a lot of the talk is, well, they didn't run the ball when they should have, or they didn't throw the ball when they should have. They were up 20-10 in the fourth quarter. And, they ran the ball, got a first down. They ran the ball again on first down, picks up 1 yard. Then they have a false start. They end up kicking the ball away, punting it away. And Kansas City reels off 21 points in the final 7 minutes of that game, and they win the Super Bowl. The last Super Bowl the 49ers had, obviously February in Las Vegas, again against the Chiefs. 49ers were the only team in NFL history to take the lead twice in the fourth quarter of a game and once in overtime and still lose. And so I know there's a lot of second guessing about the decisions, and my take on coaching decisions for the most part is always, if it works, it's a good play. If it doesn't work, it's a bad play. If you read Mike Silver's book, The Why is Everything, you really get a good idea of the level of thought and detail that goes into everything that all of those coaches do. And Shanahan is kind of the ringleader of that group that includes Sean McVay, Matt LaFleur, Mike McDaniel, and others. And so, I do remember talking to McDaniel. I didn't really know him too well at the time. It was first or second year, I think, with Kyle Shanahan. And I remember him telling me about just the level of thought that goes into everything, and that assistant coaches are encouraged to bring ideas to Kyle Shanahan, but you better have those ideas buttoned up. So They have to be very well thought out. There has to be an answer for everything. And there's really no such thing in Kyle Shanahan's vernacular for a standalone play. Everything has to make sense. Everything has to have a purpose, and everything has to kind of mesh together so that stuff can be run off of that, or it uses something in the past to give the opposing defense some level of hesitations. And so it's not just, hey, this is a cool play, let's draw it up on a napkin and roll the dice and see if it works. And one of the things I kind of thought about recently was 49ers, I think coming out of that game against Minnesota, they did very few play action passes. And one of the talking points was, why are they going away from play action? Play action is always so beneficial to them. But what people didn't look at was that play action was probably the worst thing you could do against the Minnesota Vikings, because from the standpoint of when you go up against that particular defense where they put 6 men at the line of scrimmage and they have a variety of different blitz packages, the idea was that it would be putting Brock Purdy in a almost impossible situation, at least a very difficult situation, to ask your quarterback to check out the pre-snap look of a defense. Remember, the Vikings are a team that they rotate quickly at the snap of the ball into whatever they're doing. They're trying to disguise coverage. And so it would be a very difficult situation to ask Brock Purdy to take the snap, turn his back to the defense to carry out the play action fake, and then ask him to snap his head around. And in a split second, he'd have to figure out who's coming, who's dropping, what the coverage is, what are the route adjustments that his receivers are making off of that defensive coverage, and then try to find the openings where the ball should go and what would be the right progression off of those defenses. So a lot of times, whenever there's a obvious question, why aren't the 49ers doing this? Why aren't they using more play action? Why aren't they doing something that has worked in the past? The easy answer is because it's been determined through, the entire week of game planning that whatever that particular aspect of their offense is, it would not work, and it would be the opposite of beneficial. It would be a detriment to their offense to even try that against that particular defense. Another thing I hear is that Shanahan needs an offensive coordinator, and that was something that came up from year one, that he needs to hire an offensive coordinator. He needs to cede those responsibilities over to somebody on his staff. But you're talking about one of the best coordinators in the league, one of the best play designers, one of the best play callers. And so I don't, there's never been any thought within the building of having him hire an offensive coordinator. He has plenty of lieutenants who help him out in that regard, but I don't know why you'd want to take away one of the best at what he does in the game for that reason. Um, and let's talk about the assistant coaches the 49ers have had. Shanahan has had a lot of turnover on that staff, and it tells you about the ability for him to develop coaches and send them off to greener pastures in many cases. I mean, talking about some defensive coordinators who became head coaches. Robert Saleh, of course, who's no longer with the Jets, but Robert Saleh, DeMeco Ryans, and now it's Nick Sorensen, who's the defensive coordinator after 1 year of Steve Wilks. And then just think about all the offensive coaches that he's lost over a period of time. Mike McDaniel, Mike LaFleur, Bobby Slowick, Clint Kubiak, and Adam Stenavich, who was an assistant offensive line coach and now the offensive coordinator against the Packers. So bottom line is this. I understand why there's been a level of frustration because of the 49ers' inability to finish the job. And when you have an organization with 5 Lombardi trophies and you spent so many years looking for that 6th, whenever you get that close, you want to finish the job. And those opportunities don't come along forever. 49ers will not always be a Final Four NFL team. And so, those opportunities are gone. They're in the past. This is a new year. But I also don't understand the idea of this is it. He should be on the hot seat because I really don't think that there are very many options, if any options out there who are better. I do believe that, and trust me, I've heard nothing like Jed York, CEO, John Lynch. And that's a good combination, Lynch and Shanahan. Is Shanahan, does he run hot and cold? Absolutely. John Lynch helps him kind of steady himself and keep him at a somewhat even keel. So the personalities mash there. It's been a very good combination, a very good pairing of coach and general manager from what the 49ers have been able to bring in talent wise on their team, as well as the personalities. But I just think that if the 49ers were to do what I would consider the unthinkable and move on from Kyle Shanahan, which trust me, I don't think that's happening for a good many years. In fact, Kyle Shanahan will end up being the longest tenured head coach in 49ers history. I have no question about that. But I would think that if probably 20 teams in the NFL, if they knew that they could have Kyle Shanahan as their head coach, they would make that change in a heartbeat. That's my opinion. I'd love to hear yours. Drop it in the comments section, subscribe, turn on your notifications, like all that. Or maybe you're not going to like this. I just think that um, I have a hard time really believing that the majority of 49er fans, or even a large percentage of 49er fans, think that things would be better if the 49ers went in a different direction at head coach. I mean, think about all of the dysfunction with the organization, with the football side, the personnel side in the years leading up to Shanahan and Lynch. So thanks again for watching this video. And that's it for now.